This is a conversation about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a beautiful thing when you're on the other side of it, right? Because when you're lacking forgiveness, it's almost as if you have this burden that's going with you everywhere you go, and you just don't really know how to express that to anyone else unless you've gone through something so traumatic that it's just instilled in you. And anytime you think of the person or look at them, if you could still see them, it just brings back those memories of that trauma and that anger and all those mixed feelings. But forgiveness is a beautiful thing when you're on the other side of it. Once you let it go, it's almost as if this weight is removed, this burden is removed. And oftentimes the other person, I feel, doesn't even know how mentally that incident, right, that happened, whether it was mental abuse, physical abuse, or just whatever it was that happened that stuck with you in such a negative way, and the impact that it has on you internally. I was reading in the book of Ephesians 4:32 where it says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you." And there was another verse, Mark 11:25, where it said, "And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive your trespasses." It's a beautiful thing because when we forgive, the Father in heaven forgives us, right? And I much rather live and walk in forgiveness with those around me who I can see than like one day come before God and he's like, "Yo, you couldn't even see me. You believed in me by faith, but you couldn't forgive your sister, your brother, your parents, friends, people around you that you could see." So that is something that like I was pondering on, and I was pondering on it because it's something that I myself want to practice walking on more, right? Because I know just this week alone, me and my wife had a disagreement, and the argument got ugly, right? Wasn't my best moment, right? And that happens in all marriages. And a lot of men tend to run to places where they feel they can be vulnerable and open, because most men feel that we have to suffer in silence. We don't feel like we can be in tune with our emotional side, because then you get called less than a man, a beta, all these different terms where men just don't quite feel safe to speak unless they're in a place they shouldn't be, right? Or like a bar or something like that. And oftentimes those might not be the best places for a man to go and express himself, right? So what I think is a good practice is before you jump to those things, right? Or jump to venting to your parents or people or anyone around you, right? I think that you should take a moment to just like step away from that argument for a moment, right? It's getting extremely ugly and heated. Step away for a moment. Go to a restroom. Go to a restaurant by yourself for a moment. Walk at Target. Do something where you can kind of just step away from it and have a moment to yourself to reflect and come up with the words internally that you would much rather say than reacting out of a situation, right? It's kind of like if you put your hand on a hot stove, you know that's going to burn you, right? Your immediate reaction is going to be probably nice words, right? So it's the same thing. If that's hot at that moment, it's like you don't want to touch that right now, right? Let that stove cool down, right? So that goes for both ends, right? Could be you, could be your spouse. And I found that sometimes it might not be comfortable for either party, right? But it's okay to feel discomfort for a moment so that you have better results in the end. That way, when you do come together, there's more peace. There's more grace to speak, right? I think, for the most part, if you married a person, you both are going to oftentimes than not have to learn to forgive each other, because there's compromises on both sides, right? The word says that a man marries a woman and he lives his life to please this woman, right? So it's like he has to please her just like she has to please him. He has to love her just like she has to respect him, right? That's what we learn biblically. And it's like, it's not that one is greater than the other. It's more that you both show greater results when you both forgive, right? And that ties into even friendships, right? If you have friendships that walk in forgiveness and can have uncomfortable conversations and can challenge you, those are good friendships, right? I'm not talking about challenge in the sense of competition. That's not healthy. Any competitive thing in relationships, right? Unless you're playing sports, like, you know, come on, we know that's what do you say, competitive. But in the day-to-day basis, right? Like, those relationships have to pour into you just like you pour into them, and everybody walks in this harmony, right? And that all comes with forgiveness. That all comes with speaking and communicating and being able to be on one accord, right? So that's just my little thought on forgiveness and why I think it's so beautiful. It's because you can walk in freedom once you forgive and let that go. You can walk in freedom when you remove that weight that's unnecessary on you that you're carrying. It's almost like a spirit is on your back just weighing you down, right? Like you're trying to do squats, but you got this like 500-600 pounds weighing on you. And once you remove that and do something that's more your weight, what you're supposed to carry, you're gonna be able to move more freely, you know? And you're gonna be able to think about that person or look at that person and be like, I'm no longer affected. I'm no longer letting that keep me bound, right? I don't forget, like I know what happened, but I won't let it hold me bound. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end it with that note. As usual, guys, peace and love, and thank you for tuning in.